Nebraska soybean farmers have been ahead of the curve since spring. The state was the first to finish its soybean planting, and that crop's progression continues. Among the top 18 soybean producing states, Nebraska, as of the latest progress report, was the only with 100% of soybean setting pods. Overall, the crop is rated 72% good to excellent, with 5% dropping leaves. But there could be problems within those fields. Korus from UNL's Plant and Pest Diagnostic Clinic explains what you can be scouting for in your fields.
There's 4 main prevalent diseases that are still going on throughout the state. When you look at the field from a distance, unfortunately, all of these diseases may look the same, as they have a patchy distribution throughout the field. So you'll find a spot or a patch of dying plants, and it may be from these 4 diseases, which are sudden death syndrome, brown stem rot, Phytophthora, root and stem rot, and Sclerotinia, white mold. Now, Sclerotinia is going to be confined mostly to the northern part of the state. We don't see that necessarily across the state, although we have had weather conditions this year that have made it conducive for infection on the eastern side of the state. Now, whether it'll show up there or not, I don't know. But Sclerotinia white mold, that particular fungus that causes that disease, infects through the flowers. And we had a lot of cool, wet weather during flowering this year, so that had opened up the plants for a lot of infection. With Sclerotinia, you don't start seeing the symptoms sometime until a little bit later on in the season, and you'll notice some wilting and some dieback, and maybe some white fuzzy mycelium at the base of the plants. The other one is Phytophthora root and stem rot. This one's maybe a little bit easier to distinguish from the rest because it will turn the root system, the base of the stem, and sometimes even the lower stems a dark color on the outside of the plant. So you'll be able to see this discoloration of the outside in the crown, and once you split that stem, you'll see it kind of a discoloration on the vascular tissue as well. Sudden death syndrome is also in the state. I think we all know what the leaf symptoms can look like. The veins remain green, and you get this interveinal firing and chlorosis. With sudden death syndrome, as that disease progresses, the leaves will actually fall off the petiole, which is that little stem that connects the soybean to the big stem. So you'll see these plants with all these little stems, but no leaves. So that could be an indication of sudden death syndrome. Again, we've just had the perfect weather for these kinds of diseases. Sudden death is caused by Fusarium, which also enjoys this cool, wet weather condition. And then finally, we have brown stem rot. And brown stem rot and sudden death syndrome, when you just look at the outside of the plant, or even when you step back and look at the field in general, they look quite a bit alike. And it's not until you start splitting that stem open to where you can see the differences. And they're not always super clear. So again, submission to the Plant and Pest Diagnostic Clinic can sometimes be key for these identifications. Management is all the same for these diseases. And it starts with genetic resistance. So it is important to identify which pathogen you have so that you can select a variety accordingly. You know, it's important to do these, to scout your fields now while the plants are still growing and the diseases are still differentiable. Once the plant starts to die or is completely dead, it becomes very difficult to get a diagnosis. So I would continue scouting up until the plants are completely dried down and dead.
On the Market Journal website, we'll link to information on submitting samples to UNL's Plant and Pest Diagnostic Clinic. For more information on identifying and managing soybean diseases, you can watch our interview with Lauren Giesler from the August 22nd episode of Market Journal.